Tim Tebow is one of the greatest college football players of all time, breaking records and winning championships along with the Heisman. So I thought, what would happen if we had an entire team of Tim Tebows playing offense and defense? So for this NCAA football challenge, I'm going to see how well we can do with an entire team of Tim Tebows. Now, of course, we weren't predicted to do anything, finishing 11th in the SEC, but our first game was supposed to be an easy one, going up against the Toledo Rockets. But man, talk about failure to launch. At first, things seemed to be going our way, especially after breaking off this huge run, but the momentum stopped real fast, as Tebow ended up giving up a pick 6 early on in the game. And Houston, we have a problem. A turnover problem, it seems. And Toledo's quarterback was able to capitalize, getting into the end zone, putting them up 14-0. And on this play, our entire season's momentum shifted as Tim Tebow broke his wrist and was out for the season. And so insert Timmy Tebow, our backup. And he must have definitely had his first game jitters because he ended up turning over the ball back-to-back drives. Finally, in the fourth quarter, the drought ends when our wide receiver Tim makes a great play, bringing down the ball. And in our next possession, we were able to drive down the field and punch it into the end zone again. But Toledo was able to kick a field goal, putting them up. And unfortunately, our game ends on this interception, giving Toledo the 17-14 victory. But of course, if you turn over the ball 6 times, you're probably not going to win. In the following week, we had a tough challenge going up against number 10 Oregon. In the beginning, we were running the offense flawlessly, moving up the field with ease, where Timmy was eventually able to punch it in for 6. And while our receivers were actually catching the ball and making some big plays, it didn't last long, as I ended up making a mistake and throwing my first interception of the day. Right before the end of the first half, I was able to get one more score, putting us up 17-0. Now in the second half, Oregon came roaring back. Tebow was somehow able to pull this ball down, but on 3rd and goal, I gave Bridges his 3rd interception of the day. But our defense made a stop, and our offense was able to put the game away, giving us the 17-14 win. And since Timmy was going to be our starter for the remainder of the season, I decided to go ahead and give him his rightful number. Our next challenge was up against Tennessee, and in the beginning, we were certainly struggling, as this was a tough defensive matchup. Then early in the second quarter, I make a run for it, but lose the ball, and Tennessee recovers. Tennessee was able to get into the red zone, but we were able to make a goal line stand, holding them to just 3 points. And then in our last offensive possession of the half, Tebow throws a bomb into the end zone for the touchdown. We decide to go for 2, and we get it, putting us up 8-6 at half. In the second half, it was the same story, with both teams doing a good job defensively. But with just 20 seconds left, Hendon Hooker gets his team into field goal position, where it ends up wide right, and we're able to escape with the 16-15 win. Up next, we had number 21 Kentucky, and in the rain, we were struggling defensively against Will Levis, who gets the Wildcats on the board early with this nice throw. But we were able to respond quickly for the score, but we didn't succeed on the point after. Shortly after, Timmy makes a huge mistake, giving up a pick 6, putting us down even more. As our offense sputtered, Kentucky's flourished. Despite converting on critical downs, when it mattered most, we couldn't make the play, as this ball literally hits Tebow in the arm and he doesn't catch it, turning over the ball. Despite our turnover problem, we were able to make some critical plays down near the end of the game. I decided to run the Wildcat, and we actually scored from it, again failing the 2-point conversion. And in the fourth quarter, we were able to make play after play, seemingly getting us back into the game, as Tim Tebow was able to scramble and get into the end zone, putting us down just 3 with a few minutes left. Our defense was able to make a stop and get the ball back. With just 15 seconds left, I go for the win, but get picked off. And that's the game, losing 18-21. Our next game was up against number 9 Arkansas. While the game started out slow, Tim Tebow was able to make a nice 20-yard gain here, which set us up to take the lead. We end up getting back into good field position with this nice throw on 3rd down, but on 4th and goal, I decided to go for a fake field goal and fail. But right before the end of the first half, I toss it over to our tight end, who makes an incredible play, staying up on his feet, getting all the way into the end zone, where we also convert the 2 points again. In the fourth quarter, we were surprisingly able to convert on a field goal. Our defense was able to get the stop, and from there, we were able to put the game away with this touchdown. Our next game was going to be a tough matchup going into LSU. And in the beginning, we were playing well as we jumped out in front, 14-0. And on 4th down, the momentum completely changed when we dropped this pass. Throughout the game, we weren't able to protect the end zone as Keyshawn Boutte ended up running a train on us, putting up LSU going into the fourth quarter. Tebow ended up getting into the end end zone, but of course we failed our second 2-point conversion of the day. Our stout Tebow defense was able to get us the ball back, where I was able to convert it into a touchdown, along with a successful 2-point conversion. After intercepting the ball on the final play of the game, we were in overtime. We jump out in front, as well as we decide to go for the 2-point conversion on the first score. But LSU was able to quickly respond, finding his wide receiver in the end zone despite our amazing defensive effort. But let me know down in the comments, should this been an interception? After LSU takes the lead on a field goal, we have the ball back and Tebow scrambles up the sideline, which almost ended the game with this fumble. Team Tebow put forth their best effort, but on the very last play, it simply wasn't enough. And in heartbreaking fashion, we end up losing to LSU by 3 in double overtime. In our next matchup, we had another tough opponent going up against Mizzou. Despite our team injuries, our defense was playing well, continuously making stops when needed. But after a scoreless first quarter, we were able to open the floodgates as we found our first touchdown of the day. And from there, Timmy Tebow was making play after play, finding the end zone over and over again on the air and on the ground. And in the fourth quarter, our defense turned it up a notch, making stop after stop. And then to put the game away, finishing it off with a nice interception. Comparatively, our next matchup was going to be a tough one, going up against number 4 Georgia. And early on in the game, we were throwing the ball with ease, progressing our way up the field, where Timmy was then able to scramble up the sideline for our first touchdown of the day. And from there, it just seemed like our play calling was on point, putting pressure on Georgia's defense, which eventually helped us get into the end zone again. Throughout the first half, our defense was on point, keeping the pressure on and not giving up any big plays until the end of the first half. Picking up where we left off, we were able to get into good field position, but on fourth down, I decided to go for a fake field goal, and unfortunately, our receiver decided to just stop running, which led to a turnover on downs. But thankfully, we were able to get the ball back pretty quick, which led to Tebow handing off the ball to the fullback Tebow for the touchdown. But Georgia wasn't out of it yet, as they took the lead with just under 2 minutes left in the game. But Team Tebow was able to execute the 2-minute offense to perfection, seemingly making the right plays every single time. Needing to use his legs to be able to make a play, Tebow was eventually able to scramble off to the left and up into the end zone, which gave us the lead. And in miraculous fashion, we were able to pull off the upset, winning 24-21. Up next, we were hosting Vanderbilt, who had not won a single SEC game yet. And coming off our win against Georgia, we were not playing well, accidentally fumbling the ball in our own red zone. And they capitalized on the good field position as we were unable to stop them from getting into the end zone and taking the lead. But thankfully, it didn't take us too long to respond. Tebow was able to use his arm and his legs to get us into good field position, where we were able to eventually run it in. But it was a pretty back and forth battle in the first half, as we were able to go up the field and tie up the ball game again. And in the second half, our defense showed out, making play after play. And at the end of the game, the Commodores had one chance to tie up the game, but we were able to make the stop, which gave us the 28-21 win. And somehow we had a real chance to make the SEC championship game. In our next matchup, we were going up against the South Carolina Gamecocks. And both teams were starting out pretty strong, as we were able to respond with a nice touchdown pass. And then after this nice pitch and catch, Tebow was able to break a tackle and take the ball 40 yards up the field. But on fourth down, when trying to go for a fake field goal, South Carolina sent the house and got us good. Then right before the end of the first half, we're able to intercept the ball. And with 1 second left in the half, we heave the ball downfield, and miraculously, we somehow catch the ball and get into the end zone. The second half was a completely different story, as our defense demolished the Gamecocks. And after a tough SEC schedule, it was nice to go up against an easier opponent like Rice. Despite the game being closer than expected in the first half, we were still making some really good plays. And for the second straight game, we were able to find the end zone as time expired at half. Despite Team Tebow not playing their best football, we were able to eventually pull away in the fourth quarter, ultimately winning the game 42-28. And in the following week, we had to go up against our rival, Florida State. And in the beginning, we were playing very well, connecting on passes like this for the first down. But Florida State kept the pressure on and forced some mistakes out of us. With our defense playing well and us running the offense, eventually we were able to make it into the end zone. While trying to make a play on fourth down, I loft the ball up, but it gets intercepted. But Tebow bounced back quick, as we found a receiver down the field who was able to make a play and get all the way into the end zone for 6. It didn't take FSU long to bounce back, but we were able to make a good play to get the ball back for ourselves. Overall, our defense was playing a heck of a good game. Amazingly, the Seminoles end up missing a field goal by a literal hair. And then with no time left in the half, I thought we had another touchdown, but we dropped the ball, leaving the game tied at halftime. We ended up finding ourselves down by a score in the fourth quarter when Tebow was able to make a play with his legs and from there, the halfback punched it in. And of course, I couldn't rely on the kicker, so I decided to run it in for 2. So with the game winding down at the end, with FSU down by 1, all they had to do was get into field goal range. But our cornerback makes the play of the season, sealing the game with this late interception, letting us escape with the 1-point win. And just like that, we had beaten one of our biggest rivals. After the game, we found out the bad news. We ended up losing the tiebreaker to Kentucky, so no SEC championship game for us. Unfortunately, none of the Tebows played well enough to win the Heisman, and obviously we didn't make the playoffs. But we did have a chance to go up against one of our rivals in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. And early on, we struggled mightily, consistently failing to convert when we needed to. And after the first quarter, we could tell it was going to be a defensive matchup. Eventually, we were able to find our rhythm as we drove down the field, making plays like this to get us good field position. And finally, with almost just a minute left in the first half, we were finally able to make it into the end zone. This game was the definition of a defensive matchup, but Miami's quarterback wasn't ready to give up just yet, making the right plays and eventually getting into the end zone, giving them the lead. And then after this massive run scramble by Tebow, we were able to make ourselves have a lot better field positioning. But after some poor play calling, we turned over the ball on downs. And after Miami converted on this first down, that sealed the game and our fate, losing to Miami 10-7. Overall, I was pretty happy with the way things went for Team Tebow. Once the season was over, I decided to simulate another season to see how they would do without me, and they did better, of course, finishing 11-2 and number 7 in the nation. Want more NCAA football content? Be sure to check out the video where I recreate Deion Sanders' career.